Okay, there's a lot of algebra here on these guys. 31. I'm going to find the limit as h goes to 0. This looks like the definition of a derivative. A plus h squared minus a squared over h. And you just have to remember a is a constant, so treat it like a number, like 2 or 3. It could be any constant. So that's going to be the limit as h approaches 0. A squared plus 2ah plus h squared minus a squared over h. The a squareds cancel. The h goes into there once, h times, so this is going to be the limit as h approaches 0 of 2a plus h. And as h goes to 0, that's just 2a. So if in the original limit a was 2, the answer would be 2 times 2. If a was 4, it would be 2 times 4, and so forth. All right, 32. Limit as h approaches 0 of 1 over a plus h minus 1 over a all over h. Oops, sorry for that interruption. Okay, so we've got this limit, and of course if I plug h equals 0, I get 0 in the denominator, so I need to simplify this. There's a couple ways to do that. I've got a fraction inside of a fraction, so maybe we can get rid of that. So let's multiply top and bottom by 1 over h, and we get the limit as h approaches 0 of 1 over a plus h times h minus 1 over ah, because those cancel. I still got 0 in the denominator, so let's combine these fractions. I'm hoping that this is going to simplify here, and maybe the h's will cancel. So if I multiply this one by a plus h over a plus h, and multiply this one by h, or no, a, so times a, and then I will get, there's my common denominator, right? A minus a plus h all over ah times a plus h, which is the limit as h approaches 0. A minus a is 0, and minus h if I distribute, right? Because that's got us to both, over ah times a plus h. The h's cancel, and so I get the limit as h goes to 0 of negative 1 over a times a plus h, and as h goes to 0, that becomes negative 1 over a squared. All right, 33. Let's see, 33 is, similar, except it's got squares on it. Oops. There we go. Limit, this is 33, as h goes to 0. So what's happening here is the calculus is actually a very small part. A lot of algebra. 1 over a plus h. And make sure you understand the algebra, and you will get better and better at it. Okay, so we got that. H goes to 0, I get 0 in the denominator, so I'm going to get rid of that. Multiply times both. So then I get the limit as h approaches 0 of 1 over a plus h squared times h minus 1 over a squared times h, and those cancel. Common denominator, this is just like the last one, a plus h, and then this would be, squared, and multiply this one by a squared over a squared. Alright, so I get the limit as h approaches 0 of a squared minus a plus h squared, excuse me, all over a squared times a plus h squared times h. Well, I got to simplify the top, so that's going to be the limit as h approaches 0 of a squared minus, now I'm going to distribute that and the negative at the same time, a squared minus 2ah minus h squared. Now if you don't see that, just do this part first and then distribute the negatives secondly. I just did that in one step, over a squared times a plus h squared times h, and then the a's cancel, and then this h will cancel with that guy and with one of those, so I'm left with limit as h approaches 0 of negative 2a minus h over a squared times a plus h squared. And as h goes to 0, that goes away, and thus it's negative 2a over a squared times a squared, and one of those cancels. So it's negative 2 over a to the third. All right, makes sense? And 34 is that guy. So I'm going to actually make this smaller so I can squeeze it on here. I hope that's still easy to read unless you're watching it on a phone or something. 34, limit as h approaches 0 of square root of a plus h minus square root of a over h. And again, if I plug 0 into the denominator, I get 0, so I got to do some algebraic simplification. And they gave us a hint. So let's look at that and see what that means. Now, it says multiply the top and bottom by square root of a plus h plus square root of a. This is called the conjugate. So the conjugate is something when you have a negative, it's the same thing except you switch the sign and make it a positive. Or if it was positive, you switch the sign and make it a negative. So this is called the conjugate of square root of a plus h minus square root of a. Now, watch what happens, why we choose to do that. Something kind of cool happens. The first terms, when I multiply together, I get a plus h. What happens to the outer and the inner terms? Well, this is plus square root of a plus h minus square root of a plus h. Those cancel. And so then I'm left with minus square root of a times square root of a is a. And then the denominator is h times square root of a plus h plus square root of a. And the a's cancel, and I'm left with h on the top, h on the bottom. That's going to go one time each. So then that becomes a limit as h approaches 0 of 1 over square root of a plus h plus square root of a. And as h goes to 0, that's gone. I get 1 over square root of a plus square root of a, which is 1 over 2 square root of a. Okay, a lot of just math in there and simplifying and things like that. All right, there you go for those.